What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we are going to be reviewing some Dynasty fantasy football trades that were submitted in our Discord. I'll give you guys my opinions on these trades, some ideas for what I would have done, my 2 cents, basically the thing we always do with our Dynasty trade review show. Now, usually I am going to be doing this trade show with my co-host MFGDs from Let's Talk Dynasty, but our schedules, they just didn't match up that well this week. So I am going to be doing this one solo, still going to be good nonetheless. Bear with me with the congested voice. That being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video. Let's start talking about some Dynasty trades. So as you can see, I have the trades pulled up on the screen as we speak. I got 10 of them for you guys today. We're going to be starting with this one here. This is a 12-team Superflex full PPR and start 11 league actually. Post-startup is the context that we have been given. So team 1 is going to be receiving Achane. They're going to be sending away Jayden Reed in a 2025 second. Now, post-startup, it's kind of tough sometimes to tell who are the contenders, who are the pretenders, who are the rebuilds, unless somebody really goes in during the startup and decides to do a kind of a blow it up and just tank from the beginning and try and do that productive struggle. Now, the reality is if you are a pretender or a contender and you are trying to figure out that, you're probably going to be figuring that out during the season. Now, Achane, he is definitely the most valuable player in this deal, and I think he has the ability to score the most fantasy points over the next 2 years. Now, Jayden Reed, I like Jayden Reed, and a 2025 second, it's not the greatest of draft picks, but it's also not the worst of draft picks either, especially because we don't really know what that 2025 second is going to be as far as early, middle, or late. Now, that being said, in a 12-team league, full PPR, start 11, the depth is a little bit more important. I don't think that second is going to play too much into it, but quite honestly, I think the best player in the deal and the most productive player in the deal fantasy-wise is going to be Achane, so he is the side that I'm going to lean with in this deal. Now, let's move on to our second trade here. Our second trade is going to be a 10-team Superflex, full PPR, and no tight end premium, so we don't have a premium for the tight end position. And we have a trade here from Silent Knight and Free Johnny. Silent Knight is going to be receiving Malik Nabers and Ladd McConkey. Johnny is going to be receiving AJ Brown. And this is a beautiful trade. I love this trade actually because Malik Nabers and AJ Brown, they are almost in the exact same tier. Now you get Ladd McConkey thrown in on top, and I think the reason why you're going to get Ladd McConkey thrown in is because one, we expect Malik Nabers to kind of have a slower career start. And not that we think that Malik Nabers is going to be a bad player. We actually think Malik Nabers is going to be a fantastic player, but we know that the quarterback situation in New York is going to need some solving over the next couple of years. I don't think Danny Jones is the long-term answer. I don't think he is going to be a elite quarterback for them to get him the ball. Now, we know that Malik Nabers is going to get a ton of targets, but if you were going to trade Malik Nabers, I've actually recommended AJ Brown as a possible target because AJ Brown still young enough that you're going to get some good years of production out of him, and you are also going to be getting elite production out of AJ Brown. I have him as a top 6 Dynasty fantasy football wide receiver. So there is a chance here where Silent Knight, we don't have necessarily the context of it, but if Silent Knight is a rebuilding team looking to contend in the next 2-3 years, we're talking about Malik Nabers and Ladd McConkey. That is a great value for your AJ Brown, especially if you don't think you're contending in 2025 or even 2024 that we have right now. So if you think that is the case, I fully support this trade. There's obviously more value, I think, long-term on the Nabers and McConkey side, but even if you're Johnny, and Johnny wants to contend right now, Johnny wants to go after the championship, I do like getting AJ Brown. Now, I think you probably could have got away with doing this deal, just AJ Brown for Malik Nabers. Maybe it's AJ Brown and a third, or maybe it's Malik Nabers and a third for AJ Brown. I don't think Ladd McConkey had to be thrown in, but either way, it's not a bad deal for either side. There is more value on the Nabers and McConkey side, so if you were trying to go for the value play, that is the side that you want to go with. But I could see arguments for both sides of this deal, and it's a beautiful deal. I think this deal is a very good deal for both parties, assuming the context is what we have kind of painted it out to be. Now let's move on to trade number 3 here. Trade number 3 is going to be a 12-team Superflex, full PPR, and tight end premium. Now team 1 says that they are rebuilding. So in this rebuilding type of move, or this rebuilding type of roster management, you're going to have him receiving Chase Brown, a 26 first, and a 2026 second for Jaylen Waddle. Now, this is interesting because Jaylen Waddle isn't necessarily a piece that I feel like we are moving in a rebuild, and not necessarily am I ever going to be trading for running backs, especially running backs that I think have short shelf lives on a rebuilding roster. So Chase Brown, he might have just been a throw-in. I think the majority of what you're making this deal out to be is for that 2026 first and that 2026 second. Is Jaylen Waddle worth 2 years down the road, a first and a second? I don't know. I guess it depends on how much your rebuild is going to be, or how long you expect your rebuild to be, because I'm not necessarily wanting to wait 2 years just to get a chance at finding a player as talented as Jaylen Waddle, because Jaylen Waddle is still going to be a top 15 type of dynasty wide receiver. We're talking about a cornerstone type of wide receiver for your rosters. This is a risky gamble. Now, obviously, you have the ability and the flexibility to make additional moves with those 2026 firsts and seconds to maybe find other young players. I think this is a move that I'm not doing if I have Jaylen Waddle on my rebuilding roster. I think it would have to take a little bit better of a deal than this one, and maybe you did shop him around. Maybe you did, pull the league and see if this was the best deal you could get, and maybe this one is. Now, if that's the case, fine, I guess. I might have even just leaned, if this was the best offer, I might have just leaned on keeping Jaylen Waddle on my squad. But that being said, the value, it's probably close enough, but it just doesn't make enough sense for me from a market standpoint, or even just from a roster management standpoint, to want to trade my Jaylen Waddle for this type of deal. So now that you do have Chase Brown, he's a player that I'd be looking to flip. If you can get another second for Chase Brown, that's probably what I'm trying to do. I don't want to hold him on my roster, especially as a rebuilder. So that's probably the additional move, and that probably makes you feel a little bit better with a 26 first and 2 seconds for Jaylen Waddle. But as I mentioned, with that first and with those seconds, you're trying to find somebody who can even come close to the talent that Jaylen Waddle has, and I think that's the risk. In a rebuild, I'm not really trying to trade my young guys to try and take shots on additional young guys that have already, when my young guy has already hit. That's not what I'm trying to do. So let's move on here to our next trade. Our next trade is going to be the trade on the thumbnail, and this is a 12-team Superflex tiered PPR 4-point passing touchdown and start 10 type of league. You have team 1 here who's going to be receiving Josh Jacobs and Jalen Hurts, and then you have team 2 who's going to be receiving Saquon Barkley and Justin Herbert. Now, in a 12-team 4-point passing touchdown, I think it's clear the immediate and the short-term value of Justin Herbert is in flux. We don't really know what this offense is going to look like. We think we know what it's going to look like, but we're not sure for certain. So what I want to do is probably capitalize on the ability to make this trade. You have Jalen Hurts, who I think is a locked and loaded top 5 dynasty QB. We know what he can do. And in a 4-point passing touchdown where you're going to get the bonus points for the rushing touchdowns, I know people are going to say the tush push isn't going to happen as often as it was with Jason Kelce under center, but I guess with Jason Kelce playing center. But with that being said, I think they're going to still use it. It's not like they're going to run away from it. They're not going to be unable to do it just because Jason Kelce isn't there anymore. They still have a good interior offensive lineman that's going to play center for them, Cam Jurgens. I think he's going to be fine for them. I think they're still going to do it. Jalen Hurts is being faded by the public. I'm buying in on this. I think he is, in a 4-point passing touchdown league, a top 3 dynasty quarterback. I would have him as my QB3 right behind Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And the difference short term, I think, between a guy like Josh Jacobs and a guy like Saquon Barkley isn't going to be drastic. It may be a couple spots. I think I have Saquon, as a mid to a high end running back 1 this year. Jacobs might be a low end running back 1. The reality is I'm not thinking that's going to be a major difference for me, especially when I'm upgrading my quarterback position this drastically over the course of the next couple of seasons. So give me Jalen Hurts in this deal. It's not even particularly close for me. I think if you wanted to, just trade Justin Herbert for Jalen Hurts straight up, you'd probably have to throw in maybe a late 25 first on the Herbert side, Herbert in a late first to get to Hurts in this type of format. I think that makes it feel a little bit more fair. So in a deal like this, you're probably missing like an additional second in value, maybe a late first in value that should be going to the Herbert side. So whoever is receiving the Jalen Hurts and the Josh Jacobs side, love this trade for you. Makes a ton of sense, and you come away as the winner of this deal. So let's move on to our next trade here. We are going to be looking at a trade that is a 12-team Superflex full PPR and a tight end premium league. And look, this type of deal is capitalizing on hype, capitalizing on opportunity, and capitalizing on probably desperation from the team that is going to be receiving Sam Darnold and Jermaine Burton. Now, in a 12-team Superflex, you might have teams that need QB, and Sam Darnold, obviously, with the J.J. McCarthy injury, does get the immediate starting job here in Minnesota. He's probably going to start for the majority of the year, assuming he doesn't play horribly. Now, that is the risk with Sam Darnold, and you're going to be receiving a 25 first and a 26 second for your Sam Darnold and Jermaine Burton. And at the end of the day, as much as I like Jermaine Burton, as much as I think he's talented, he is a dart throw nonetheless. So I think when you look at this deal and you look at the potential of capitalizing and selling high on a guy like Sam Darnold, and even maybe capitalizing on some hype for Jermaine Burton and coming away with the first and the second, just makes a ton of sense. I mean, obviously, we don't got to talk too much about it. I think the best case scenario, the absolute best case scenario for a guy like Sam Darnold is he goes out, he has the Baker Mayfield year, the prove it year, where he ends up getting an extension to play for another team or something. And if that's the case, you probably were only going to be able to get a first for him anyways at the end of the year. So getting the first now, eliminating the risk of him going out and failing in Minnesota this season, it just makes total sense. So give me the first and the second side. We don't got to think too much about that one. That one is an easy deal, and you're capitalizing on some desperation from a quarterback room, potentially on a team in your league. So let's move on to our next trade over here. We are going to be talking about this one that is a 12-team Superflex PPR and tight end premium league. Now, the context that they left us in the notes on the Discord says that they needed running back depth and they are a contending roster. So if they needed running back depth, it's going to be Nick AV26. He is going to be receiving Brandon Aiyuk and Brian Robinson. He gives up Luke Musgrave and Rome Odunze. Now, this is an interesting trade as well because it kind of goes back to that Malik Nabers and that AJ Brown deal. We're talking about immediate short-term production versus long-term value and long-term potential. Now, in the short, immediate production type of range, you're talking about Brandon Aiyuk and Brian Robinson. Obviously, Aiyuk just signed that contract extension. He is going to be locked into San Francisco for a long time as their number one wide receiver, or at least 1A is what we're expecting. But Brandon Aiyuk, I think in the short term, will outproduce Rome Odunze maybe for a year, maybe two, but that's even like stretching it. I think Rome Odunze has the opportunity to establish himself as the alpha here in Chicago very quickly, especially with some of the bad press and some of the bad news about Keenan Allen as of lately this offseason. Rome Odunze, he's the only one there that profiles as a true X. I think he is going to be Caleb's best friend in this offense. We obviously have kind of seen it a little bit through Hard Knocks and through some of the pre-draft process of just the media clips that we've seen. Now, at the end of the day, do you want to risk that long-term, high upside type of player in Rome Odunze for some immediate production? I don't know. If the goal was to try and get running back depth, I think you can do that without including Rome Odunze in a deal. It doesn't make a ton of sense for me to throw Rome Odunze in a deal willingly if the goal is to just get some RB depth and keep contending. Because I think Rome Odunze, I think the ceiling for a guy like this is we're talking about an AJ Brown type of wide receiver. We're talking about a Garrett Wilson. Even like maybe it's a little bit high, but like the talent of Rome Odunze is we think he can be a top 10 wide receiver in this league. Is that Brandon Aiyuk? Probably not. I love Brandon Aiyuk. I think Brandon Aiyuk is a fantastic wide receiver, but we're talking about a guy who, you know, on a spike weeks, he's a low-end wide receiver 1, but most likely he's a high-end wide receiver 2 for your lineup. I just think the ceiling of Rome Odunze is much higher. Musgrave for Robinson, it's honestly irrelevant. It's funny that that's the part of the deal that you're going for because you had the extra tight end in Musgrave and you're looking for the running back depth, but this deal feels much larger than that to me. It's Aiyuk for Odunze here. This is what it feels like to me, and I don't know if that's the deal that I'm making. If I'm moving Rome Odunze, I'm looking for somebody who can be a little bit better than what Brandon Aiyuk can give my roster, and Brian Robinson is not a needle mover for me. I don't think he's that great. We're talking about a guy in a one-year window who maybe is going to give you low-end running back 2 numbers this year at best. Just especially with the addition of Austin Eckler, probably taking some of the passing work and some of the goal line rushing going to a guy like Jayden Daniels. It's probably not a deal that I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, look, it's the best player in the deal and the most valuable player in the deal long term is going to be Rome Odunze in a dynasty lens. So just give me the Rome Odunze side here, and I probably would have tried to find my running back depth somewhere cheaper and somewhere maybe a little bit easier to get that wasn't going to include my Rome Odunze. So I get you're contending, and maybe Rome Odunze doesn't look great this year. I'm not, blowing my load on Rome Odunze very quickly. Pause. That was crazy. I'm not going to get out of Rome Odunze very early and just wait on Rome Odunze here because I think he is going to be a superstar. That was a crazy, pause that, of course. Now let's move on to the next trade here. We do have this trade that is a 12-team Superflex, full PPR, no tight end premium, and start 9. Josh Allen is being received for Tua, a 25 first, a 25 first, and a 25 second. So this is a lot of value going to the team that is giving up Josh Allen. Now, I get it. There's going to be some people that are a little bit nervous about Josh Allen right now because the departure of Stephon Diggs, the departure of Gabe Davis, the wide receiver room here looks a little bit sketchy. It's ambiguous, of course. You have Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and Dalton Kincaid. And Dalton Kincaid is probably the number one receiver in this offense at the moment. So you get Tua, who just signed the extension, multiple firsts. We don't know where they're necessarily going to land. We'll just project them late. That is the safest thing to do, is always project those firsts that you're getting as late. That way you don't lose value long term. If you project it to be early and a team overperforms and they are late, then you lose a trade because of that. Just project those trades or those picks as late picks, unless it's very, very clear that those teams are bad. But that being said, look, we're talking about most likely a 4-point passing touchdown league because they didn't specify 6-point passing. The rushing upside of a guy like Josh Allen is going to be incredible. Tua doesn't possess that. He is a guy that, can give you some low-end QB1 numbers, I think, with the offense around him. But at the end of the day, I think start 9, you're not as worried about your depth. Best player in the deal is Josh Allen, and Josh Allen is the side that I'm going to lean on. Now, if you are rebuilding and you're trying to go get Tua and a couple firsts and a second, I understand the process. The tier down, get some extra value, and you have some young guys over the next year or two that you can build around as well. But I'm thinking about this from who do I want right now on my Dynasty roster, and I want Josh Allen, and this is a price that I'm probably willing to pay to get Josh Allen on my roster as well. So I think it just makes sense. Give me Josh Allen. It's hard for me to not look at a trade for Josh Allen, for Patrick Mahomes, one of these guys that are so elite for fantasy football, and not usually just lean to that side during the deal unless I'm being blown away. And I don't know if Tua and 2 firsts blows me away from a value standpoint to just get off my Josh Allen. So if you're receiving Josh Allen in this side of the deal, I love it. I think it makes you very competitive as a fantasy football roster. Now let's go to our next trade here. We do have a 12-team Superflex full PPR half-point tight end premium and start 10. Now, Team 1 wanted to mention that they also have Dak Prescott on their roster, so they're going to be trading for CeeDee Lamb and a 25 third. We don't care about the 25 third. Fluff, it's thrown in, but you get CeeDee Lamb to pair with your Dak Prescott, creating a stack on your Dynasty roster. Now, what do you have to give up? You give up DK Metcalf, Jonathon Brooks, a 25 first, and a 25 second. So it feels like quite a bit, but it's not going to be that much. You see 4 assets. I think Jonathon Brooks, we're talking about a low-end first type of value, high-end second type of value, depending on the league that you play in. In a 12 team, he's more that low-end first. Now, that 25 first, that 25 second, we're assuming you're going to be competitive, and we're assuming it's your first because you have CeeDee, Dak. You should be a competitive roster if you were rostering guys like that. Now, DK, he's going to be fine. Like I said, Jonathon Brooks, we kind of know what he's going to be. Are you willing to give up DK, Brooks, a first and a second to get Lamb? I think I am. Lamb is by far the best player in the deal. He just got that extension. He got the long-term money. Now, we need to see Dak get the money as well. I want to see Dak get that extension because that is going to be great for CeeDee Lamb's long-term value, but that should hopefully come. Hopefully, they're not going to be looking at a new quarterback in 2025. That would be very bad for CeeDee Lamb, I think, if he had to play with a rookie quarterback or maybe just an unproven quarterback that isn't named Dak Prescott. But again, if you are a rebuilding roster as well, do you want the other side? I could see why you would, but at the end of the day, Lamb is young enough that he is a cornerstone piece you can build around for a very long time as a rebuild. Now, in a rebuilding lens, you are trying to diversify and kind of tier down and gain more value so you have a ton of assets. And then when you get closer to the time that you're competing, you're going to package those assets and tier up. And that's kind of the way that I do it. Get more shots and then add them all together and package them to get valuable shots. So that's what I'm doing in a rebuild. But at the end of the day, if we're looking at winners and losers of this trade, give me the CeeDee Lamb side. It's not particularly close for me. And I understand a first, Metcalf, Brooks, a second. It feels like a lot. These are guys that in a start 10, we're talking about like wide receiver 2 on your team, maybe wide receiver 3 on your team with DK Metcalf. Maybe Jonathon Brooks is a guy that you're not even starting because you drafted him in a rookie draft. Those first, seconds, we're expecting them late. Yeah, give me CeeDee Lamb, man. He is a bona fide top 2, probably top 3, I guess at worst, wide receiver in Dynasty. Give me JJ, give me CeeDee, give me Chase. Those are the types of assets that we're talking about here, man. And I think even on Keep Trade Cut at the moment, Lamb has now surpassed JJ as the wide receiver 1. So we're talking about an elite guy. Give me him in this deal. Now let's move on to our next trade here. We do have this trade from Luke and Jagger. It is a 12-team Superflex full PPR tight end premium. Now 6-point passing touchdown in this deal and a start 10. You do have Luke receiving Joe Burrow, Javonte Williams, Josh Jacobs, Chris Olave. He's giving up Josh Allen and Travis Etienne. Now, I just mentioned it. I feel like every time you are getting or giving up Josh Allen or trading for Josh Allen, it needs to be a package that blows me away when you're looking at the value standpoint of it. Now, Etienne, I think probably on the same type of tier or the same type of level as a guy like Chris Olave. So we can probably take them and cross them off of each other. Now, I know people are going to say, oh, I love Olave. Some people are going to say, I hate Olave. At the end of the day, they're close enough that I think we can kind of cross that off. So are you sending Josh Allen for Burrow, Javonte, and Jacobs? Probably not. I don't like the idea of getting, 4 quarters for my dollar or 4 quarters for my $1.25, whatever you want to call that Josh Allen and Travis Etienne side. But the 2 best players, or the 2 of the 3 best players in this deal, are going to be Travis Etienne, Josh Allen, and that's the side that you're giving up. I just want to have Josh Allen and I want to have Travis Etienne. Now I get in the 6-point passing touchdown, you get Joe Burrow, you think he might throw a little bit more touchdowns than Josh Allen. I think it's going to be closer than people think. Joe Burrow's wrist is still something that I think should be on people's mind. Chris Olave is going to have quarterback issues. Javonte, it was looking like dark days for Javonte for the majority of the offseason, and Josh Jacobs doesn't have too much longer left on his legs before we're talking about a guy that could hit the running back age cliff. Look, it's fine. You're not losing by a mile receiving the Burrow, the Olave, the Williams, the Jacobs side, but the side that I want to come away with in this deal when I'm looking at it is just give me Josh Allen and Travis Etienne. So that's the side that I'm going to be taking in this deal. Now we go on to another trade here, and I think this is the last trade of the episode. So we are going to be looking at a 12-team Superflex, full PPR, no tight end premium, and start 9. This is a big trade, so we'll break it down slow. Sleeper team 1 gets Tua Tagovailoa, Jamar Chase, a 26 first, a 27 first, and a 26 second. They give away Saquon Barkley, Mark Andrews, Kyler Murray, Tank Dell. Now, the best player in this deal is going to be Jamar Chase. The second best player in this deal, in my opinion, will be Kyler Murray. So we're talking about 2 guys that are probably cornerstone pieces for your roster. When you have a deal like this, I want to try and cross some of these assets out. So what would you say, Saquon Barkley is worth in a dynasty? Is he worth that 26 first? I guess it depends on where it lands. Some people would say to a contender, he's definitely worth it. Some people would say on a rebuilding lineup, they'd rather have the 26 first. Can we use that to cross each other out? Maybe. Are Tua and Kyler close enough? Maybe. I think Kyler's a little bit of a better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa is, especially in a 4-point passing touchdown. In a league that is not a tight end premium, could Mark Andrews be worth one of those first? Maybe he might have a little bit more value than that as well. Or is Tank Dell worth one of those first? I think that's kind of the way that you got to start breaking it down. I know it sounds confusing. It sounds like a lot, but that's the way that you got to look at it. But when I'm seeing a trade like this, I see Kyler Murray, Barkley, Andrews, Dell, and I think actually, as much as I do really love Kyler Murray, and I think Kyler Murray is a fantastic asset for our Dynasty Fantasy Football teams, him and Tua are going to be close enough. Like I said, Kyler's a little bit better, but they're close enough that I feel okay with that. Jamar Chase, cornerstone piece. You can build around him for a long time. And then we're talking about assets like Tank Dell, Saquon Barkley, Mark Andrews, who won Tank Dell. I think he's a little bit overvalued in the community. That's going to ruffle feathers. People are going to think that I'm wrong when I say that, but I think he's a little bit overvalued. I'm not as sold on Tank Dell as everybody else. So I don't mind, kind of looking at him and saying, let's grab some value for him and get out of this while he kind of overproduced as a rookie. Saquon Barkley, like we said, close to the running back age cliff. Mark Andrews, a little bit older as well. I lean the Tua, the Chase, the 2 first, and the second. Now, I understand we got to wait a little bit, and I said I don't like waiting earlier on those first round picks, but a 26 first, a 27 first, I feel like that gives you ammunition now to where you could come away with, Tua, Chase, a first, and a second. And I think we actually even saw this trade. There was a part 2 to this trade, and I think it was the one earlier where he took Tua, the first, and the second, and he got Josh Allen. So we're looking at Josh Allen and Jamar Chase for Saquon, Andrews, Kyler, Tank. That's the move you want to make. That's a secondary move you can make, and that's how you capitalize on the value. So I love that side. And even just not knowing that he does make that second move, I lean the Chase and Tua side as well. So that's the side of the trade that I want to come away with. So there you have it. That is the last trade in today's episode. If you did enjoy today's episode, go ahead and leave a like on this video. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. I appreciate you guys watching. A little bit different, not as much conversation as we usually have when MFGDs is with us, when War is with us. We talk a little bit about the trades, but I still think it's beneficial and still valuable. We'll do another trade show here soon, so we can have that conversation. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed, hit the notification bell, and join the free Discord linked in the description. There is that Discord there. That's where people are submitting the trades. So if you want your Dynasty trades reviewed on future episodes, you can join in there and get your trade submitted. So with all of that being said, I have nothing else for you guys today. I will see you on our next video, but until then, peace out.